Good morning, everybody. Hopefully your day is starting out okay. I have an interesting topic for you today. I'm going to go over a comment of somebody who approached the situation correctly and had some success, and we will discuss that. But first, if you want to sign up for the SMS notifications, you can do that by texting DSDLIVE, all one word, to 1-844-598-0012. And that'll add you on to the nifty SMS list. I'll keep doing that for the morning shows just as a reminder because we're getting back in the groove. And then I'll probably back off on that a little bit just because probably don't need a notification every morning if it's consistent. We can play on that and see how that goes. You want to dial into the show today, you can call in at 1-424-373-5483 or 1-424-DSD-LIVE. And I forgot to call into the line, so let me start that right now. Okay, so that's going. And we got a few people in there. I'll hit the morning crew. Just got a couple people. It'll be Defy Dad. Oh, I changed the way the box comes up, so hopefully that will look okay. Gives us a big thumbs up. Big thumbs up to you. Haven't seen you in a while, so hopefully you're doing well, sir. Jeff says, good morning, all. Good morning to you, sir. George also says good morning. Good morning to you, sir. John says, hello, Duane. Good morning. Good morning to you. Hopefully you guys are starting out great. Tumblers, iTum says, DSC, good morning. Quick question. How do you address fatigue after a battle? That's a really great question. You know what? I'm going to highlight that and we'll come back to that. Got Heather on. Good morning to you, Heather. And Tim says, time to chat. Let's start with a solid poke in the eye to remind to remember the pain of dealing with an ex. Okay, so I have a couple of videos on the channel talking about toxic daughter-in-laws and how to deal with it when you're the mother-in-law. And I got this comment the other day that I think oftentimes I'll get people who find the channel or the video after the mistakes have been made. I mean, I know we all can't get the right information at the right time, but sometimes we do, or sometimes we approach things correctly, and it really makes a huge difference. So this will be just going over this. I don't know if you guys can see this. So this is from a viewer. It says, my husband and I went through this, talking about toxic daughter-in-law. Our ex-daughter-in-law tried to cause a fight before their wedding, which did not work. Her mask came off, but we backed off from her, but yet did not say anything to our son. See, this is critical. This is where oftentimes, like we were talking about wedge issues the other day, and this is a good example of that, where had they approached us differently, especially on the early days of their son and daughter-in-law's relationship, that could have easily been weaponized. And this is typically what happens. Someone acts a fool, you try to confront it, and then it's like a trap that's being set, and you walk into that mistake. Anyway, so they go on to say, we backed off from her but did not say anything to our son. We would have family dinner, and my son would come, but not her. But we still didn't say anything. Also, with camping trips, my son wanted to come on, but both were invited, but she did not want to come. Keeping quiet worked in our case. We did not visit him. We did not visit him and his ex-wife. We left the door open for our son. It's super critical to leave the door open, right? I know I talk about that a lot. Because of our lack of response, my son started seeing what she was like and would make comments about her. We just listened, but did not give our opinion or advice. That's super smart too. It's a weird balancing act because you don't want it to come across like, you're over. Well, I mean, if you were to say, well, you're overthinking it, she's fine or whatever, but you really have to allow people to figure out what's going on their own time. And oftentimes, when we are actively trying to get people to see it, it makes it harder. I was actually just working with a gentleman last night, and this was one of the topics that was coming up. Their ex is engaging in things, and fortunately, he's backing off and letting the truth just speak for itself. Often I talk about how we have to get out of our own way or get out of the way of them taking themselves out. I absolutely messed this up, excuse me, early on. In my situation with my ex, I was trying to fix things, and all I was doing was basically preventing the truth from being crystal clear. So let's continue on. Whoops, I got to move that out of the way. Basically, they did not give their advice or opinion. We just said, sorry to hear that. Stay out of their business. Leave the door open. She grew tired after a year and a half of marriage. When she left, she packed up her things, and when my husband went over to see our son, wow, did she finally rage. My son is thankful that she is gone. And I know that people who get into these situations where the damage is done, the alienation, triangulation, wedge issues have all been firmly planted. It makes it really tough to back off. And this type of scenario, I mean, I know this is a little bit of a unique situation for the channel, but when you have that situation where you've lost ground, it's the only thing that really helps you is time. And you have to be really careful that you don't fall into the trap that a toxic narcissist has set to help them justify their smear campaign and their delusion of what they're trying to put out there. Now, I know it's not easy to deal with that. I mean, these people that I was on the comment I was just going over showed considerable restraint. And fortunately, they had the awareness to go, crap, we got to be very careful about how we approach it. But this relates to everything that we're dealing with. I mean, this is across the board. This is in the standard topic of the channel with toxic ex and kids. This is also work when you're dealing with a toxic narcissist person. They are constantly trying to set little traps for you to hurt your reputation and play stupid games. And you have to just be mindful of that and be cautious of the actions that you take and what the implications or the result of those may or could be, right? Hold on, I gotta move a window. Crap, I hit the wrong button. I'm trying to hit the host show button and I hit the screen show button. Geez. It's weird because there's inaction to where you don't do anything and nothing changes. And that's a problem, right? You don't want to put your head in the sand and just pretend nothing's happening or just have that you got the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. You don't want to freeze. You want to be deliberate. You want to look at a situation and have a plan and be executing the best way forward to deal with it. And oftentimes a slow approach can be really beneficial because it gives you time to really think about what's happening, approach it in a way to minimize the negative effects towards you, and if you have kids, your kids. And sometimes what happens is they just torpedo themselves. So anyways, that is the topic for the day. Let's see. We got another. I think it's going to be a quiet morning, and I do have my coffee. Hopefully, you have yours. Boo says, "What's up, Duane? Good morning / afternoon from the windy south coast of England. I'm decorating my new house, but got my ear on your channel. Well, outstanding. Well, hold on. I'm going to do this because this is, whoops, wrong button. I'm going my old way. Congratulations on the new place and getting it all decorated. Hopefully it's a complete positive for you. So outstanding. If anybody has any questions that they want to cover, just put question or put a Q colon. That would probably be the easiest. Q colon and a topic you want me to cover. God, there was another issue that I wanted to hit that I did not pre-screen before we got to this point. One thing I will just update people on is I've been waiting for the paperwork to show up. It was supposed to show up yesterday, and it didn't. Everything else in a form delivery in the United States, we have this. You can sign up for this thing to where it will tell you what's coming. So, I saw the piece of mail en route, and so I skipped out to the mailbox after the mailman or mail person dropped it off, and it wasn't there. So I got to figure out. Might have to call the court today to see if I can get a copy of what was filed. I don't know. Woos asks, this is DSD, how do you get them to torpedo themselves? The main way you do that, Woos, is you get out of the way and you let them do it on their own. Too often we feel like we have to engage, we have to get involved, and it just complicates everything. I often in some of my older videos would talk about, you be the rock, you be stable, you don't fall into their craziness because it makes us or it makes you look crazy. And then that doesn't accomplish anything. You basically are delaying any repercussions for them because of that. So, and it's hard. It's really hard to sit there and not do anything. But if you're deliberately doing nothing, then it's like doing something. It's just weird because it feels like you have to do something. Oh, and I also I'm going to go back up to Tumblr's question. It says, quick question. I mentioned this at the top of the show. DSD, good morning. Quick question. How do you address fatigue after a battle with a narc? Okay, it's self-care. I mean, you need to, and this is one of the things that I think people don't think about. And I've seen this time and time again as a reality for people. And what I'm saying is that we all think that once we finish the battle or that we win that battle, like in Tumblr's case, he had, I'm assuming what he's talking about is he had this situation. He's succeeded. He's been victorious in it. And you would think, if people think it's like, okay, well, you do something, you have a victory and you feel good about it. You have a party, you celebrate, things are good. And then what happens is you have an emotional crash afterwards, like he's talking about fatigue. Part of the thing is you have to understand that is a normal reaction in these situations. And kind of expect it. Because partly what happens or what goes wrong, and this is an issue I had as well, as I would get through something, I'd be like, oh, thank God, I'd have one day where I'm like, yes, I am victorious. And then I would fall into this depression afterwards, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? This doesn't make any sense. Well, it does make sense. These are incredibly stressful situations. But I guess it kind of seems normal because other people go through it. But it's very similar to being in a war. You're hyper-focused. Your senses are focused on the issue at hand. And you don't have the time to process everything that's going on. And this isn't fun, right? I mean, this is not, you pitch a project and you make a bunch of money when you make the sale or whatever. This is a very serious situation with serious consequences. It's, your financial future, your freedom, depending on if there's false allegations that potentially are criminal, and when you get out of this, it's you all of those emotions that you've pent up that you have not been able to address. When your subconscious is like, okay, I'm out of the fire, now I can deal with it, right? I mean, it's like the same thing that happens with people who have been in a physically traumatic thing, war zones, accidents, whatever. I mean, you can deal with the situation. I think battle's probably a better analogy because, you go off to conflict. You're there for a period of time. The entire time you're there, every day something bad could potentially happen. Maybe you're seeing things that are just very devastating. You get back home and then the PTSD comes because you're now in a situation to where you're in a quote unquote safer environment. So it's like your subconscious is like, okay, finally, now I can address this. I can look at this and I can start feeling and expressing these emotions. So the key point on that, let's see, I'm going to try to find your comment again. The key point is first thing, recognize what's going on, right? So that way you're not sitting there feeling like, oh my God, I'm, something's wrong with me. I shouldn't feel this way. Yeah, actually, unfortunately, you should. Second thing is just taking active steps to deal with it, right? If you get some rest, take some time off, go do something that decompresses you, that helps. I mean, for me, at least now, I mean, back in the day, I couldn't really do it, but oftentimes what I'll do is I'll take my truck and I'll drive up to the mountains and I'll sit there by myself and take pictures and just hang out and have a fire and just chill out in nature and just get away from everything. Now, that for me, it works well. Some people, that kind of solitude would be problematic because some people gravitate to just thinking about would sit there and ruminate about what's going on. For some reason, whenever I do the mountain things, I don't, So that would be the thing. I mean, like, what activity can you do that helps you? What can you do that makes you laugh? I mean, I've been going through this thing. I mean, I don't know if you guys, it's probably the only shorts I really like, but there's some people who will do cool things on Omegle, whatever, that thing that they just shut down, which probably for a good reason. But what I did like is there would be these content creators that would do these things like, go on and play a song for somebody. Like a professional musician would go on and pretend like maybe they didn't know how to play, hey, I just got this guitar. Can I play you a song? And they would play it, start playing it and then, messing it up and then doing it right. And, and then the reactions, and it's all positive, happy stuff, right? I mean, it's like, I watch that stuff and you just smile, right? You inherently kind of feel better, right? So you find something that kind of puts a pattern interrupt in that fatigue to help you. What you absolutely don't want to do, and it's hard, and it's easy to get into this trap, and sometimes it's hard to break it, is to, I don't want to say wallow, but but really embrace the ick, or the yuck of the whole thing. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I mean, it's just, you can easily fall into that trap where you just, you feel worse, and the voice in your head is just saying, bad things and just driving you down. And I used to have that problem as well. I mean, I still have to deal with that. I've had with the situation I'm dealing with right now in the last few months, I've had instances of this. Now, I haven't been on the victory side yet, but I mean, I have this thing where it's kind of this wearing me down. But tumblers, you have a great point. I mean, I would expect the normal pattern is once this is, see, and this will be interesting. This will be a good data point to see how things play out. In my mind, what should happen, if at the end of this month, this gets thrown out and it's over, I should feel happy. I mean, I should feel like a weight coming off, and I probably will if it happens right then. But I can also see that after a few days that I'm probably going to have an emotional crash, because that's a pattern that repeats. It's absolutely repeated with me. I've worked with a bunch of coaching clients that it's happened with them. I've had a bunch of people on, just in live streams and stuff like that, echo the same type of comment. It's very common. So tumblers, let me know if that was helpful for you. So it was a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. Let's see. I already mentioned the torpedo one. So David says, DSC, the only problem I find is that when it's all done, wait a minute. Let's try this again. The only problem I find is that when it's all done, all and done, sorry, we spent fighting years for time we won't get back with our children when they were small and innocent. Okay, let me reread, because I'm sorry that I butchered that. So basically David is saying, he's on the other side of this, or maybe he's still in the middle of it, and he's like, okay, so, but, oh, woohoo, 7 years down the road, I finally have a victory, but now my 7-year-old is 14. I've lost that time. That is, you are absolutely correct, David. And this, this is a tough one, because you're absolutely correct. And you have every right to think about that and be irritated about it. But what I would ask you on that is, how is that thought helping you going forward? Every one of us has a decision to make, and we can turn around. And I struggled with this for a good year or so, where I was just angry. This is not right. This isn't fair. This should have never happened. And that's true. Everything I just said is absolutely true. The problem is, you can't roll the clock back. You can't. Typically, we don't get a punishment or justice towards the ex to make it all right or try to make it whole. But here's the thing. I'm going to pull this back up. If let's, like you said, when it's all done, it's all over, it's all done. In my mind, the way I look at it now, and I tried to look at it then, and it took me a while to really get this to sink in, is that once I'm past the line, every day I stay angry and bitter about that, it holds me to the ex. It holds me to that previous time, and that's extra victory time that they get. Does that make sense, David? It's not easy. It's not. And it's, I have seen people who have been bitter for decades because of a toxic. Actually, my dad's a great example. He was so angry and bitter that I didn't really see him pivot to really, get to the other side of this until like in his late 60s. And I could be that person. I could sit here every day, get up and just start the day going, okay, I got my coffee and let me go down the list of all the things that my ex has done to ruin my life, ruin my relationship. And she has, well, funny is not the right word, but I could easily say, I lost 7 to 10 years because of, that I was unable to do hardly anything with my kids. I couldn't get them the things I wanted to. I busted my butt at work to get, to move up, to make decent money. And then because of what she basically did, she screwed everything up that I was hoping to be able to do for the family later. And I could see, and it was incredibly frustrating, and there was a time where I'm like, I can't do anything in my life. I'm sitting here. I can't do anything with I can spend time with my kids. We can't go anywhere. I can't take them to the movies because I can't afford it. The only thing we could do is hang out and play, which actually was a good thing, but it was a daily reminder of what I wasn't able to do. And then I'm thinking, you know what? I'm in my divorce started when I was in my 40s. I'm like, I'm just sitting here. The last little bit of health that I have is I'm squandering it because I don't have the money to put the gas in the car to drive into town. I can't, it's like for most of that time, the food budget was, it's like all the stuff I could sit here and still be pissed about it. And it's valid reason to be angry. My son used to get irritated. This was kind of weird, but he would be mad. He's like, this ain't right. Once everyone gets older, I have 3 kids. If you're new to the show, I have, now they're 24, 22, and 18. At the time, it was like, 13, 11, or 12, 10, and like 5 or 6. I can't remember the age, but and he would get angry because he's like, well, this ain't fair because, later, whenever I'm an adult and my sister's an adult and the last one will be, get all the benefit from it. And yeah, he's right. That last year I was able to do stuff with my youngest that I was never able to do with the other kids. I just didn't have the money. So you can absolutely stay angry on it. Valid point. But just ask yourself, how does it enhance your life, and how does it enhance if you have been able to restore your relationship with your kids? How does it help it? It doesn't. That's where learning. I don't know if learning is the right word, but that's why letting things go is so critically important. You're not doing it to give a pass to the other person. You're doing it to give you your life back. And it is probably one of the most difficult things a person is going to ever have to do. It was really hard for me because I'm like, how am I ever going to let this go? How am I going to ever not, take every opportunity to take my big fat finger and just go boop in the ex's eye to try to make her life a living hell just so she can feel. It's like, it's so easy to fall into that trap. But at the end of the, and as I'm saying this, it is not easy. Please do not think that I'm just wired differently, that, this was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to, I just inherently know that staying in this mindset just has nothing good. It was hard. There was a time where if I could have spent $10 to take a penny from her, I would have. I just didn't have any money. So David, let me know if that rant was helpful. Hopefully it was. But your question and your concern, spot on, man. That's something that you are feeling, and you're going through the process that everyone goes through on this. Now, my hope is that you'll see that everyone goes through this, and most people work through it and take their lives back. Anyways. Okay, so I did cover Tumblr's question. Now I got to get back into where we're at with the comments. Tim says, Tim says, I think I have my decision, but wanted to pose Suppose this as unresolved. The ex works in a job where she can control what is reported for her income. My medical insurance costs jumped up a few thousand. Okay, so you said something else. You said, I think I have my decision, but wait a minute. Did you just say that twice, or did I hit that twice? I think I hit it twice. Do I go to court and get reimbursed for the higher medical, or absorb it so she doesn't try to manipulate her salary down and increase my payments and support to her? See, that's a good question, Tim. And I think that it's like, what are we talking about, right? Like, for instance, what I'll say is this. When I still had 2 kids under the dole or whatever on child support, and I remember talking to Department of Child Support Services, and they're like, hey, she's not working, we'll impute her wages. Just say the word and we'll start this process. And I never did. And I never did, right? I mean, it's like, 6 years, I just kept waiting. And it was like, the way I looked at it is it worth the cost, the potential money that I could have got back? And it wasn't insignificant. Would it be worth it in the potential cost to my sanity and peace and my relationship with the kids? And I ultimately said, yeah, I'm not going to do it, because I've seen too many people who get caught up in the question you're talking about, Tim, and they go into it and it drags them right back into the pit of hell. And it doesn't go, see, family court just never really, it's like mutual assured destruction. And the hard part is that they enjoy the fight. So, I mean, another example I've heard of this didn't happen to me, but what I've heard other people do is daycare, right? One parent says, oh, there's daycare and it's $1,000 a month. And I want, and they get a $500 plus up because of it. The other parent gets pissed because it's like, they're not in daycare. They're staying with Auntie Tina, And so they go back to court. And by the time they get into court, a week before, they're re-enrolled in daycare, and they come up with some excuse. And worst case scenario, you spent all this time and money to get to court to ask a question, and it's like, oh, okay, no, they're back into it. There was this little thing, it's no big deal. Why are we here? Or worse, you get there and they're like, well, since we're here, let's reevaluate. And this is what Tim's talking about. Let's reevaluate everything and take a look at it. Now, Tim, I would say on your situation, if your state has an imputed, see, the problem is, it depends on what the number is, right? If they imputed the wage and it would not move your numbers around, like in California, everything's guidelines, so it's relatively easy to just type in the numbers and see what the bill would be. But that would be the only time I would consider, is if you are absolutely sure that it would not hurt you. Because here's the other problem, right? We do this, and let's say Tim went through this and he goes through it, he goes to court, and they're like, oh, well, no, we don't care about the new medical costs, it's all in the noise floor. Technically, like in California, you put the medical cost as part of the calculator. So you put in your pay, the ex's pay, what your medical costs, medical insurance is, what your other, certain bills. You key it all out, right? I mean, you might be able to, I wonder if I can pull this up. If you went to California Child Support Calculator. Okay, so if you went to that, you're going to go to the guideline calculator for California, right? It's like, how many kids do you have? Okay, I have 1 kid, and then you just start putting in the information. How are you filing? What's your wages? Do you have extra income? What are your deductions? And then I haven't looked at this in a while. And then there's, I think down here, there's like, what is necessary, what do you have to pay for your job, tax deductions, item. One in here. Yeah. So add-on. So what I actually did get an add-on for, daycare and childcare. So effectively she was paying part of it. I mean, I was paying like $600 or $700 a month, but I got an offset from child support to cover part of it. So your state, so I would say, if you're in Montana, do Montana child support calculator and see if they have a guideline. A lot of states have moved to guideline. So it's just you key in the numbers, it spits out the formula. The only thing is the only thing you can really argue is what the numbers are, stuff like that. So, all right. So let me see if Tim had anything else. Because I know I'm definitely falling behind in the comments. So Tim says, and I rolled to the bottom. Tim says, let me look at the screen. I am going to absorb the $200 per month. Idiot judge refused to impute income to the ex when she changed jobs and dropped 40% income. Then during COVID, imputed wages when I was fired. Oh man, isn't it? That's what's so frustrating about this is like, it's not typically, it doesn't seem fair, right? It's like, okay, so you would expect if they would do that to you, that they would do that to her. That's why, honestly, family court, it's too subjective, and they have too much discretion on what they decide to do. And to me, it's just, it gets to be dangerous. Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of what I was saying, that that's probably what I would have done. I mean, technically it's a good point because, medical continued to go up, if I remember correctly, for me. And I never went to say, hey, and I didn't get a raise the way I was at, I was maxed out for, what was it? 10 years, 9 years. I mean, I didn't start seeing even the cost. Well, one, we weren't having raises for the long time. So, I mean, I went a long time where I didn't get, anything bills went up, but, anyways, honestly, there are times where I'm like, thank God my divorce happened when it did, because with the inflation and stuff right now, if I was to roll the clock back and deal with, I don't know how I would have pulled it off. I mean, we would have been eating that would have been, I guess, our meal of choice was hot dogs and top ramen. So, but yes, I would agree with you on that, Tim. I think that's probably your best approach. Okay, I'm going to scroll back down. Oh, that's a good question. Outback says, DSD, have you ever ended up coaching X separately without knowing until later, or find that they were both following the channel? Often wondered if the X is on here. No, actually, I'm not aware of that. I have had people say, I'm being stalked on, this person is my ex, which I really can't do much about. It's not like I can really ban people. I think the most I can do with YouTube is I can quote unquote ban somebody on comments, but really all it does, it doesn't prevent them from making comments. It just won't show their comments to anybody. So, so that's kind of weird, but yeah, no, not that I am aware of. Dominic says, my ex blames me for her behavioral problems with her kids. I have 2 nights a week. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but this is almost funny. I have them 2 nights a week. She will call me while I'm at work and tell me that I need to yell at our son because he is rude. Any tips? Yes, do not fall for that trap. That, sir, is a wedge issue trap. So don't do it. Basically like, hey, that's your issue. I can talk to little Timmy, but I don't engage in that, because what she's trying to do is she's trying for you to be the bad guy, you to be the enforcer, and then you take the hits for that. I've seen people fall into this trap. Unfortunately, when you have a toxic erratic ex, you need to you have a good boundary of, excuse me, of how things are going. The only caveat on that, Dominic, that I would say would be different is if you and the ex are co-parenting at a way to where you both will implement some type of consequence that is consistent between both houses. But be very careful on that. You know, I mean, if you're talking to her, which I technically wouldn't recommend, but, you know, I mean, if you have a way to where you can have some open communications, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But because I fell into this trap. My ex would be like, you know, oh, you know, little Timmy is having this problem. What should we do? And I would say, well, I think we should do this, 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 and this. Oh, okay. And then she would not do any of that. And then I would look like the a-hole, and she would use it as a wedge to try to be like, it's so sad your dad's so mean, right? You know, I mean, and so be really careful of that, Dominic, because it's a trap. Don't fall into it. And it's hard not to, you know? Yeah, if you want to add some more into it, I can cover some more on that. But let me know if that was helpful. Let's see. I'm gonna try to scroll around the comments. Let's see. Woo says, question, I just watched Alex Falcone's talk about don't let your kids bring stuff between houses because they'll lose it. I haven't seen that one. My son asked to take his Switch between houses 2 days gone. He was so upset. So did that get... See, it's tough. I struggle with that one myself. Again, and that's kind of a wedge issue too. I initially would say no. And then after a while, see, the thing is it's, if you guys remember my decision matrix, I need to make a slide on this. The decision matrix I was using towards the end of this is on the double bind things. What is the best decision for me and the kids? Now, as I'm saying that, you could easily say, well, the best decision for the kid is that they don't take it over so they don't lose it. So they get to enjoy it at least 50% or whatever your custody arrangement is, when they're there. But after a while, I'm like, whatever, I mean, typically when the kids get older, you can kind of change that. I guess the way I dealt with it is initially I tried to make sure anything that I didn't want to transition, I didn't try to make it portable, right? It's like, get a computer, like a TV or something. It's like that you can't just take back and forth. Woo's what I would say on your situation. I'll bring this back up. And this is where, you kind of hope that whatever the issue is, it's not a huge cost, I guess the word I'm looking for. And then it's a teaching moment, right? So later, if, like you replace it and it's like, well, I want to take it back over there. And it's like, well, it got lost before. Let's not do that. I think typically what ended up happening in our situation is they would have duplicates of things. But again, towards the end of it, I'm like, whatever. You want to take stuff. I even actually had a computer I was letting my youngest borrow. And at one point, she was like, well, can I take this over to mommy's? And I'm like, sure. I mean, did I really want something nice over, it was like in my decision matrix. I mean, I could say no, I could be firm and say nope. But how did it move the needle? It didn't, right? So I need to make an infographic to cover that decision matrix. All right. So now I'm overlapping comments that I've hit. Miami Babe says, DSC, are you ever going to get out of spousal support? I think so. Because I'm dealing with this other court and I'm kind of in this court mode, what my goal is once, unless I get crushed in the civil suit, I'm already in the mindset of it. I've already made some calls, and the information I've been told is that California has pivoted to a, not a lifetime alimony thing. So I should have a very strong possibility of going to court and getting it terminated, but I'm just going to have to do that. I just don't want to fight two battles at the same time. So I'm going to finish the first one and then deal with the second one. So hopefully I will have that, have a plan on that. Was kind of hoping that 2024 would be smooth sailing and I could not have to deal with some of this stuff, but unfortunately that has not played out. Laura S. says, hi, Duane. First live show that I've caught. Well, thank you for hanging out with us. Keep up the great work. I really appreciate everything that you're doing. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you watching and making the comment and hanging out for the live stream. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Tim says to Woos, I had a hard rule. Nothing between houses. I even washed clothes and dressed the kids in what they wore to my house back to mom's. I used to do that too. That's a good thing to mention on the clothes, because the problem I would have is I would get new clothes. I would send them over. They would come back with old, small clothes, and my clothes were basically just getting moved over to the mom's house. And it's a tough thing, right? I think that the pivot point on this, or the way where it changes, is when the kids get old enough to understand what's going on. Young kids aren't going to get it. They're going to be like, and it's a tough one, right? It's a wedge issue because, I'm trying to think of a way to put it, but the other parent who wants to weaponize that, be like, oh, well, make sure that you get, make sure you wear the exact same thing that you came back with your dad's on, he'll be so angry, that type of thing. So it's just one of those things. Now I get it. Like for me in the beginning, I didn't have money for clothes. Actually, the main way I dealt with it is I had some friends who had, had older kids who would gift me clothes that they could wear. But yeah, it was incredibly frustrating. So, and that's the other complicated thing about this is there's no firm right answer. I think the answers change. It's a double bind. You take all the information and, like Tim was talking about with the clothes, and even me, and it's like, well, I know this is going to be used against me, but I also know I don't have the money to go buy clothes every week when the kids come back. So, I did do the same thing. And it's so, I feel so bad for the kids because you're just crammed in the middle of it and there's nothing that they can, they can't get out of it. We can't get them out of it. If it wasn't this freaking stupid thing, the other person wouldn't do it. It wouldn't be a game. It's a passive aggressive bullshit game. However, I've also known, I had a person I knew in real life, a father who would intentionally, this is so wrong. He would intentionally, before he took his kid back, load them up on sugar. It's like, okay, here, let's have a soda and candy bars and whatever. And I was like, all right, let's go to your mom's, I'm just thinking, dude, what the hell are you doing, man? And it's just that type of stuff is just, you got to, where your attentions will, and karma has a way of coming back around. He got binged on some stuff. Wu says, despite divorce decree spelling everything out, my fabulous has cranked up communication now. Wasn't expecting this. Ignore it. Yeah, ignore it. What you need to do is, where is it? Let me come over here. What I would encourage you to review, sir, is the hybrid no contact video on the main page. Go to the YouTube channel, scroll down to Mindset for Narcissistic Abuse Recovery, and the hybrid no contact video there. That is what you need to do. What you do is you look at the minimize how you look at it, but when you look at it, just say, look at it and say, is there anything that really needs to be responded? If they're asking questions that are clearly outlined out, maybe one or two times say, hi, X, comma, this is clearly outlined in the divorce decree. Just follow follow that. Thanks. And then after that, just don't answer, just don't respond. Now, the only caveat I will say is if you're in active litigation, you probably need to be more cautious of that, because if they're sending you communications and you're constantly ignoring it, that can be used against you. So what you end up wanting to do is, if they send you a bunch of crap, if there's a nugget in there that is worthy of a response, then fine. Mine used to do the same thing. It's like, asking me questions that it's like, the answer to, get the answer yourself. And it's just to poke you. It's just to go boop and to try to get a reaction. You just don't take the bait. Don't take the bait. Hakuna Matata says, David, it's certainly tough. I myself have one child, was 10 when the other created the lies, and now they're 14, and I'm still battling parental alienation. DSD is there a path for this? I have created the. It's see 14. It depends on where you're at with the parental alienation, Hakuna Matata. The main approach I would recommend on this is you have to figure out what the lies are, and then actively demonstrate that it's not there and that it's not true. But you can't say that's not true. What you have to do is you have to change your behavior to demonstrate the opposite, and then give it some time. And then when the kid still is poking you in the eye for past lies, then you can start saying, hey, I've made a bunch of changes. I'm trying to do better on that. This is the things I've done. What would you recommend to your child? Really, it's like, how can what can I or what can we do, better? And you have to give it time, and that's the hard part. Is most often our response is to say, well, this is what's going on and this is why, and not to let the kid feel like you're hearing them, because that's right there is a trap too. Because when you do that, they're already prepared for it, they're already expecting it, and you have to break that cycle. All right, there is actually a call on line 1. I'm going to go to that, and hopefully it's going to be a quick one, but let me get that set up. So, hello and welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Duane. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. What was going on?
Yeah, so I appreciate it. I asked just to be like so many people going through these issues. You get hypervigilant, so I appreciate that. I'm 2 years into this, man, and I'm going to be 51 here in a few weeks. I've got 4 kids, 16, 14, 10, and 6 years old. Much like you, like 23-year relationship, 20-year marriage, the whole nine. And I've almost from jump, I've experienced parental alienation, particularly with the older kids. They were brought in to mom's sphere in terms of like being confidants and friends rather than kids.
Parentification. Yep.
And and I'm really grieving the loss of relationship with the older kids. I'm stuttering here, but how do I handle this? Like right now, the courts allowed them to not see me. I have one kid that's just finished a day program with a mental health facility because they were saying that they were suicidal. And again, you were talking earlier about wedge issues and whatnot, and the twisting of narratives to like fit things. So I don't know, man. Like my heart hurts and breaks, not just for myself but for my kids. And what do you do when you've got a situation where mom's firmly implanted, nonsense into the older kids? And to be for full disclosure too, there's no I don't have any addictive behaviors, so there's no pornography, additional people, alcohol, drugs, nothing. This is the sort of thing that just literally I told her that I was autonomous and I could make my own healthcare decisions, because I was being told not to take high blood pressure medicine, nor go to a doctor. That I was supposed to go see a naturopath and whatever floats your boat. But at the time, I was choosing to do this thing, and I said, "Look, I can make my own healthcare decisions." And then within a couple of days, the whole thing blew up. So yeah.
So I mean, this is what man, I'm sorry you're going through this. So this is, if I was in your shoes, this is the approach. What I would do is keep the door open for the older kids, because what you need now is you need some time with them, right? I mean, and if they're at the point where we're old enough, and the court says we don't have to come, so we're not coming. What you do is you say, okay, you fake it like you're like, okay, and don't make it an issue. Keep the door open. So if the kids decide they want to see you, because now if you're in that situation, it's really up to them. The only thing I would say on that is, if you don't hear from them in like a month, reach out and say, hey, let's go grab a coffee, or let's go grab a hamburger, or, let's do something to where you can talk. And in that conversation, you have to basically kind of get your game face on when you interact with them, and have it be like you're meeting with a friend or something, I mean, and it's hard because it's going to be like freaking daggers in your heart. And if they say something, you have to make damn sure that if they say something either on purpose or by accident that would be effectively triggering for you, that you do not respond to it. Because right now what you need to do is try to open the dialogue back up and start rebuilding the relationship. And it's easy in your situation to get angry about it and close the door and say, F them, whatever. They've made their decision. Unfortunately, actually, in some ways, I'm dealing with this myself right now. I mean, kids
I appreciate that perspective, because I really think I want to keep that door open, because everything I've read, everything I've come across is like, eventually they need a healthy parent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's why I haven't self-deleted.
Right.
Is like, I don't want my kids to carry that burden into the future. And, my major, I love that suggestion. My obstacle, if you will, or my challenge is, I have no communication with them at all. Mom has never been a facilitator since this began.
Of course. Well, I mean, do they have electronic?
They're not allowed technology.
Oh.
No. Yeah, dude. She's anti-Wi-Fi, anti-5G. Like, I'm being for real. A wedge issue was, she was telling our 10-year-old son not to play the Switch in his lap at my house. And I'm like, I got on Our Family Wizard and just said, hey, the kids are afforded freedoms at my house that are different than yours. And I appreciate it if you don't tell the kids not to play, because her fear is it's irradiating him.
Yeah.
With the Switch. So
no, I get
all
it.
that stuff, man.
I tell you what, man, could you call back tomorrow at the beginning and we could just cover this more tomorrow? Cause we are down to 15 seconds.
Would love that.
All right. So
yeah, no, it's great, Duane. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right. Sorry about that. I have to cut that short. Everybody, thank you for hanging out with me today. I will be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. Pacific for another show. Hopefully the caller will call back and we can continue that. Apologize for having to cut that short. On that, not that button, I want to say thank you to the channel members, the ones who have clicked the join button, who are supporting the channel and helping keep the lights on, the phone lines open, all that good stuff. Thank you guys for doing that. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I am worthy of that support. On that, have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next one.